Hello, good morning, namaste, and buenos dias. I am Dr. Chita Degri from India. I'm a graduate from UCM at New Delhi. Currently, I'm working as a resident in New Delhi. And one of the most beautiful things about this rotation is that we have people from all over the world getting together to study neurology, study new concepts, and study a totally new system for us, which is the American system. So today we'll be talking about the algorithm to approach a patient with peripheral neuropathy. So the objectives for today will be what is the peripheral nerve, what are the types, its functions. So knowing types and function is pretty important because when you know what a function is, you know what happens when it gets detected. Then today we'll basically focus on the history and physical examination to narrow down to our
Okay,
differential diagnosis and
neuropathies.
then what tests to order after that. So diagnosis of a peripheral nerve disorder can be frustrating, time consuming and costly. We always have a patient who comes with very non-specific vague symptoms. And when you open a book, you see a whole list of differential diagnosis for peripheral nerve disease. So it becomes very important as a clinician to ask specific questions to narrow down to your diagnosis so that you know what you're thinking, you know what tests to order, and and there's a clear communication between you and your patient on what you're thinking and what you're ordering. So we'll focus on the clinical aspect and then the electrodiagnostic assessment and then what all the tests to order. So first of all, what is the peripheral nerve? Peripheral nerve includes all the cranial nerves except for the second. It includes the spinal roots. It includes the dorsal ganglia. It includes the peripheral nerve trunk and its terminal branches, and then the autonomic system. What are the types? So there are various types. It can be large fibers, small fibers. They're further divided into myelinated, unmyelinated. So large myelinated carry motor and sensory. Sensory, it carries the touch sense, the light touch, the proprioception, and vibration. Small myelinated carries autonomic and sensory, but in sensory it carries light touch, pain, and temperature. Small unmyelinated carries sensory and basically the pain and temperature. So clinically, what is important? It is that large fibers carry vibration proprioception, small fibers carry pain temperature, and light touch is carried by both of them. And clinically, one of the most important things that I've also noticed, a patient with a large myelinated axon peripheral neuropathy comes with symptoms which they say are tight band-like experience, feeling like as if they're walking on clouds, feeling of walking on cotton. So that is a symptom when the patient has loss of proprioception and vibration sensation. So these are the types of peripheral neuropathy. Large fiber neuropathy presents with this distribution. Small fiber neuropathy with this distribution. Proximal affects the proximal sites. Then we have acute mononeuropathies, which have specific areas, and then we have compressive neuropathies. So first of all, when the patient comes to you, the first question you ask is about the time of onset. If it is acute within days, then you basically suspect it can be a trauma, it can be ischemic. If it is subacute, that is weeks to months, then it can be inflammatory, metabolic. If it is chronic, been for months or years, then toxic or metabolic. So this will help you narrow downing on what you're thinking and what can be the causes. Then you'll ask for some associated features. If it is painful, points out towards ischemic. So clinically, diabetic neuropathy is painful because diabetes causes the vessels, the blood supply to the nerves to stop. So it can be painful. So painful points out towards ischemic. If it is small fiber, then it presents with burning pain, light like sensation, lancinating pain. Then there is dysesthesia, which is uncomfortable paresthesia, and there is allodynia, that non-noxious stimuli are perceived as noxious by the patient. If it is sensory, so then we have sensory and motor. If it is sensory, then the patient will have tingling, paresthesia, hyposthesia, and there will be reduced sensation and numbness. If it is dying back or distal, then the patient will have a glove and stocking distribution. If it is multifocal, then multiple nerves will be involved in non-contiguous areas. If it is motor, then the patient will have weakness, muscle wasting, tripping over the toes, loss of grip, cramping fasciculation, may look like a restless leg syndrome, but you have to keep this in mind. If it is proximal, then the patient will have difficulty in climbing up the stairs. getting out of the bed, getting out of the chair, and also dysarthria, difficulty swallowing. Then in history, you need to ask about certain risk factors, certain systemic causes. You have to ask about drug use. There's a very long list of drugs, so you should be very vigilant about the drugs the patient is taking and maybe refer to that list and see if there's any drug that can cause peripheral neuropathy and stop the drug accordingly. Then alcohol. Alcohol affects the nerve at cellular level and also causes vitamin deficiency. Then exposure to heavy metal and solvents. This is very important. Recently, while my practice in India, I came across a patient who had ascending peripheral neuropathy. He had diarrhea and then he developed ascending neuropathy. We were thinking it to be GBS. We sent his blood toxicology screen and it turned out he had arsenic poisoning and someone poisoned him. So it becomes very important to keep this as a diagnosis because a lot of heavy metal poisoning, whether it be acute or chronic, present as GBS or any other neuropathy. Then HIV, you have to ask about HIV risk factors like sexual contact and IV drug abuse. Then foreign travel history, leprosy, which is quite common in developing countries. Then we have dietary. Dietary history is needed to rule out vitamin deficiency, B12 and B6. So one of the most important points that I've noticed clinically is there's a difference between being vegan and being vegetarian. If you're a vegetarian, then basic deficiency that you can have is protein and iron. You don't have vitamin deficiency as such. Vitamin D is pretty normal and B12 folate is normal because the milk and the green vegetables provide with everything. But if a patient is vegan, then you have to be very, very, very vigilant about the vitamin deficiencies. Then diabetes, hypothyroidism, take a bite because Lyme is very common in the US. Then you ask about family history. You inquire about Hamartose, high output, any gait abnormality to rule out any muscle dystrophy, which can cause long-standing peripheral neuropathy. So this was the history aspect. After you have a basic idea on what you're thinking, then you go to the physical examination. While performing the physical examination, you should have these questions in your mind. Is it sensory, motor, or sensory motor? Is it symmetric or asymmetric? Is it distal, proximal? And then you have to see what are the nerves or the nerve roots involved. So for sensory and motor, you have to ask these questions and you have to like examine the patient for these things. Light touch, pinprick, temperature, vibration, and position. A lot of patients have loss of position sense. You can do the Romberg test. And there's a phenomenon known as pseudoathetosis. When you examine the patient, it seems like the patient is having tremors, but those are not tremors. The patient does not know the position of his joint, so he's just moving his joint. Here's a video, and I'll play it for you. So it looks like that this patient is having tremors, but these are not tremors. It's just that he does not know where his joints are, but when he opens his eyes, it stabilizes. So this is how you rule out it from tremors and a pseudoathetosis. For a motor neuropathy, you look for fasciculation, cramps, loss of tone, loss of muscle bulk. Then for proximal and distal, if the patient cannot squat, cannot rise up from chair unassisted, then it is proximal. For distal, there will be foot drop, they will be unable to wear slippers and hold flask. If it's a long-standing neuropathy, like diabetes, myeloid leprosy, then the patient will have certain trophic changes like hyposcoliosis, loss of hair, ulceration, pes which is the increased arch. When you do an X-ray, you'll find there is loss of bone density, thinning of phalanges. This rules out towards a long-standing disorder. If the patient has nerve thickening, it can be leprosy or a myeloid. If the patient comes and he has orthostatic hypotension, then it points out towards autonomic fiber involvement seen in GBS. For GBS, you also have to monitor the patient's respiratory rate and vital capacity because GBS leads to compromise of the respiratory system. If the patient comes with lymphadenopathy, hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, or skin lesions, then systemic disorders. And if there are certain nail changes, then you have to think towards heavy metal poisoning, arsenic most probably. So this was the algorithm that I found. An examination, you order certain blood tests. Blood tests are the CBC, CMP, ESR, fasting blood sugar or the HbA1c, B12, and TSH. If anything is abnormal, you treat the condition and you observe the patient. If everything is normal, then you go for electrodiagnostic test, which is the NCV and EMG. If the NCV and EMG shows an axonal pattern, then think about diabetes, the toxics, thyroid, vitamin, hereditary, and vasculitis. Keeping this in mind, you will order an ANA, P-ANCA, C-ANCA, rheumatoid factor, RPR for syphilis, HIV, Lyme, and take a history of whatever medication is the patient is taking and family history. If all of these tests come negative, then you will take urine for metal screening for pyorrhea, and then you can also check for multiple myeloma. If everything is normal, then go for genital testing. If the patient shows the demyelinating pattern on electrodiagnostic study and the condition is uniform, then it will be most probably hereditary. If it is demyelinating and non-uniform, then if it is acute, think about GBS. If it is subacute or chronic, think about CITP. If it is mixed, axonal as well as demyelinating, first think about demyelinating as demyelinating disorders are more common. If everything comes negative after investigation for demyelinating, go for axonal and do this. If everything comes out to be normal, if everything comes out to be normal and negative, then you go for a nerve biopsy. And everything is normal, then you repeat the test, observe the patient, do autonomic testing. If it is still normal, then do a nerve biopsy. So this was a basic clinical approach and what tests to order for peripheral neuropathy. And thank you so much.